The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is one you're very familiar with. It's one you hear me talk about every single week. You are whole, perfect, and complete. At your essence, you are whole, perfect, and complete. Despite what anyone might have told you when you were a kid, you are whole, perfect, and complete. Despite what anybody might have told you, whether they're a child or an adult, either last week or out in the parking lot on the way to church this morning, you are whole, perfect, and complete. You know, there may be some behaviors, some patterns, some addictions that you want to let go of, that is covering up your perfection, but at your essence, you are whole, perfect, and complete. But here's the thing. It takes a spiritually intelligent person to put down the drama, to stop agreeing with people who are telling you that you're less than, and begin to live the life that you were sent here to live, which is a life of abundance, a life of joy, a life of deep connection with one another, a life of adventure. The definition of spiritual intelligence is behaving with compassion and wisdom while maintaining inner and outer peace no matter what the world throws at you, no matter what your family throws at you, no matter what society throws at you, no matter what anybody throws at you. The definition of a spiritually intelligent person is behaving with compassion and wisdom while maintaining inner and outer peace despite any circumstances that are out there. Now, if you've been coming with me for a while, you know the story of the Buddhist farmer. It's one that I try and tell at least 3 times a year. Why? Because I need to hear it at least 3 times a year. And if I need to hear it, somebody else in the church needs to hear it 3 times a year. It's the story of a farmer who is tilling his land and his horse runs away. And he doesn't have anybody to pull his plow. And all of the neighbors from the surrounding area come by and say, "Oh, that's awful." And he says, "Maybe." And the next day the horse comes back, but he brings a girlfriend. So now he has 2 horses. And all the neighbors come by and they say, "Wow, how lucky are you?" And he says, "Maybe." And the day after that, his son, who is his only helper on the farm, decides to ride the new horse. Only he falls off and breaks his leg. And the neighbors all come by and they say, "Oh, that's tough luck." And the farmer says, "Maybe." And the day after that, the army comes by to conscript all young men, but because his leg is broken, he doesn't have to go. And the neighbors come by and say, "Whoa, how lucky are you?" And the farmer says, "What? Maybe." See, this isn't a story of, this is a story of hanging on. Not only hanging on, but hanging on with grace. Hanging on to understand that if you're still breathing, there's still hope. There's still hope yet to come. Helping us to become spiritually more intelligent so we can be like the farmer. Because I know there's somebody in the church this morning besides me who needs to have a maybe when stuff comes down their way. Maybe it's finances that you're going through. Maybe it's a health issue that you're going through. Maybe it's a relationship with your kids. And you need to just say to yourself today, maybe. Helping us to become more spiritually intelligent is a book that I have been rereading called SQ21, the 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence by a woman named Cindy Wigglesworth. Now, the first, we've gone through 7 of the 21, and they are on our YouTube channel. If you haven't been able to visit with us, they're on YouTube. And Rosie is right now putting the YouTube channel on the comment section of the Facebook. But for the rest of you, I can tell you our YouTube channel is CSA Sacramento 1, CSA Sacramento 1, and you can get the first 7 of them there. Number 8, Wigglesworth calls it the awareness of the breadth of time perception. the awareness of the breadth of time perception. It's a clinical term for understanding that we operate a lot in our lives based on our past, based on our individual past, and also based on the experiences of our individual tribes that we come from. Years ago, a friend of mine bought a new Volkswagen Bug. It was a beautiful little car. It was a red, candy apple red. It had a Madras convertible top, and she loved that car. Now, we all knew this woman to not be a great housekeeper, but she kept that Bug in pristine condition. There wasn't a gum wrapper anywhere to be found in that car. So I was surprised when one day she called me and she said, Georgia, can we switch cars for a week? Now, I had an old beat-up Nissan truck. And I said, well, sure, of course. I didn't even ask her why, but I was curious. Well, at the end of the week when she brought my car back, I said, why did you want to do that? She said, my aunt, my mother's sister, and her husband, and all of their children were burned in the internment camp in Nazi Germany. She said, if my parents knew that I bought a German vehicle, they would be totally devastated in their life. See, all of us have something in the past that is coloring how we see this moment. For many of us, the depression still has its claws in us. For others, it's racial terrorism, such as the lynchings that are continuing today for African Americans. For others, it's the internment of 120,000 Japanese citizens during World War II. For many of us, it's simply more personal. We grew up with a raging father or a raging mother in our life, and we begin to look at our circumstances through that light. When we can begin to look at our own lives and our own circumstances with compassion and with wisdom of someone who looks behind us with the breadth of time perception, we can begin to sharpen the skill of spiritual intelligence. It's important for two reasons. One reason is compassion is always a good thing to have more of in our life. But also we can break that hold on things that have on that incidents and situations have on us that make us hold on so tight, and we can't give the gift of greater freedom to our children and our grandchildren and generations to come. We want to be able to tell them the truth, not in some hiding, shameful way, but with wisdom and compassion. When it came time for my friend to tell her daughter about her ethnicity and about her religion and about what happened to her great aunt, she took a lot of time to figure out how to tell that story, honestly, but in such a way that if that child wanted to buy a German anything, she wouldn't be ashamed of it. She would just be able to go out and do it. Now, none of this is easy. Sharpening our spiritual skills is essential for the gifts of spiritual intelligence. Number 9, awareness of the limitations in what you see. Buddha says, where there is perception, there is deception. Now, Wigglesworth comes at this concept with a lot of different skills, some of which we've already talked about, especially our worldview and other people's worldviews. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it except to say this. When we're aware of our perceptions, we're less likely to gather evidence to find out that it's so. For instance, if you have a brother-in-law who you think, your perception, is mistreating your sister, you would do well to look at this idea of the breadth of depth perception. And perhaps if you do, you would not only, when you see him the next time, you would begin to say, oh, wait, I'm gathering evidence for something I already know. Maybe what I ought to do is look at this brother-in-law for this hour and a half we're together for dinner and see if there's anywhere that he's treating my sister nicely and lovingly. In other words, behaving with wisdom and compassion while maintaining inner and outer peace. Number 10, awareness of spiritual laws. Well, you know what? I almost don't need to spend any time on that because that's why you're here every Sunday. You come here to understand how spiritual laws work. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said there's a power for good in the universe, and it's a power that we can use. The power he's talking about is God, by whatever name you want to put on that. Universal presence. You can even call it humanity if that's what you want. The object is not to worry about what you're calling it. The object is to worry how it not to worry, but to understand how it works in our life. See, we're working with spiritual laws all the time. We're either working correctly with them or we're not working correctly with them. Learning how to use them correctly is why you come to church. It's why you're here on Sunday. But see, the real juice is not here on Sunday. It's in the classes that we teach. That's where you get the real juice of how to understand and work with this law, this energy for good that you and I can use. We have 2 classes coming up. Consider taking one of them. Number 11, experience of transcendental oneness. The experience of transcendental oneness. Now, all religions, including ours, seeks to understand and teach the notion of transcendent oneness. It's a tough lesson. And honestly, it's a tough sell for clergy because there's so much evidence out there to the contrary. In our everyday life, it looks like unless we participate in us and them, or me and you, we're losing something precious to us. But we're not losing anything precious to us. See, you and I, we want to make sure somebody's cheering for us before we're willing to cheer for them. It will only when we stop any sort of separation. And by that, and this is tough for me, because I am as left-wing as they get. But unless we begin to put a stop to any sort of separation, we cannot sharpen the skill of transcendental oneness. It's just not possible. Wigglesworth asks us to become aware if we feel the pain of others, if we feel the pain of animals, if we feel the pain of Great Mother Earth. And if we, to the extent we're feeling that pain, that's to the extent we're experiencing transcendental oneness in our life. Now, Wigglesworth, as you know, has broken this book down into sections. Remember, the first 5 skills were under the section, Know Thyself. And the last 6 were under the section, Know Thy World. Now we're entering into the skill under the section, Self-Mastery. Lao Tzu teaches us in the Tao Te Ching, he who controls others may be very powerful, but he who controls himself is mightier still. He who controls others is powerful, but he who controls himself is mightier still. Wigglesworth has, I think, one of the best definitions of self-mastery. It means that by which we give the higher self the upper hand, our Christ self, our engaged self, our conscious self. We give that the higher hand over the powerful drives of the ego. This is the skill set that teaches us how take the ego out of the driver's seat. Now notice, she says take the ego out of the driver's seat. She doesn't mean hang the ego out the window as you pass the canyon and drop it on the curve. No. She says, look, the ego no longer gets to sit in the driver's seat. We put that in the passenger's seat. It has the air conditioner on. It's buckled up safely. But it doesn't touch the dial. It doesn't get to change the station in our life. So let's get right to it, because you don't want to take your ego to take a break. You want your ego, I don't know about you, but I want my ego to take a break. I want it to stop the driver's seat. I want to really concentrate on this notion of putting my higher self, my conscious self, thinking in the old-fashioned way of what would the best person I know do right now? What would happen if what I'm thinking about doing right now was a story told 5 years from now? That's how we get the ego out of the way and get in touch with our higher self. Number 12 is commitment to spiritual growth. And really, the operative word here is commitment. Commitment is foundation to any development. You can't build a house without foundation. You can't build a new part of your life without foundation. Growing is hard, and without commitment, it's impossible. Now, commitment can't be just fancy speeches that you make to yourself when you want to lose some weight or cut up your credit card. No, you need to take action. Commitment means taking action, and often action is aligned with healing our past so-called failures. You don't have any failures in your life. You only have life lessons. But some of those things that we see as failures need to be healed, especially if we're having a commitment to spiritual growth. Wigglesworth says this: many of us need to heal the wounds of our religion of origin because it's stunting our growth. She's not suggesting that we reconnect in a worship way. She's saying that we heal old unresolved wounds and issues from our experiences of religion. Your religion of origin, because it involved your relationship with God, is really important to you. Even if you don't know it consciously, your old religious wounds are keeping you from that feeling that we so desperately want right now. Anything tied up with keeping great spirit from feeling comfortable inside of you, from you knowing that you are whole, perfect, and complete, needs to be healed before we can become spiritually intelligent. Commitment to spiritual growth, in Wigglesworth's opinion, must be free from old religious wounds. She says it's interesting that when she asks clients what their religion of origin might be, they often associate it with a very narrow view of that religion, either a denomination or sometimes even a parish or a congregation, or sometimes even a group within a parish or a congregation. It's really not the religion in most cases that cause the wounds, but the spiritually unintelligent people. If we really wanted to be committed to spiritual growth and improve this skill, maybe we need to stop saying phrases like, I'm a recovering Catholic, I'm a recovering Buddhist, I'm a recovering Muslim, I'm a recovering Taoist. Maybe we need to just let that be and know that it's part of our life, but not part of our life now. A bonus in developing this skill is we can more easily be with the people of our own origin, especially those who've remained with the faith of our origin. My whole entire family is Catholic, and we fight about plenty of things, but we don't fight about that anymore because I'm totally healed and appreciative of what that brought to me, and no longer feel like it is part of what makes me small or not perfect or not whole in our life. See, we can live in peaceful coexistence. And truthfully, that's the entire point of this book, is not only living in peaceful coexistence, but living with a good feeling about who we are, walking tall, walking into a room like this that maybe we've never been into before, and we walk into it and we don't see ourselves immediately, and we say, it's okay, because I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm with other beings of light. Let's take this message into prayer, knowing that there's only one power, and it's the power of love that runs right through me. That's my prayer. That is really my only prayer, is being in touch with that presence, with that energy, with that love, and getting my bloated nothingness out of the way so I can share it with others and begin to lighten the world. I give thanks for this. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.